2 weeks ago, Ford announced pricing for the T6.2 Ford Ranger, and now Volkswagen has confirmed its twin under-the-skin Amarok will be arriving with Australian customers as soon as the first quarter of 2023, following its slated July 2022 launch and the first media drives occurring in either November or December. So stay tuned for that, because we're definitely going to be getting our hands on one of Volkswagen's new utes. Now let's break down what the Amarok is going to be. The next generation Amarok will feature an option of 4 diesel engines in the lineup, as is expected to use the same engines as found in the related Ford Ranger, ditching its existing VW Group V6 turbo diesel for a similarly grunty flagship V6 turbo diesel from the Ford Ranger that can trace its roots back to the F-150 ute and also further back as a PSA JLR Lion V6, where you might have seen it in a Land Rover Discovery 4. Now in today's video, I'm going to run you through the differences between the outgoing Amarok and this new vehicle that we're seeing here in camouflage right now, the likely differences between it and what's going to be a heavily stylistically different Ford Ranger, the Amarok's Australian development story, and speculate about the potential powertrains that could end up in this Amarok. So if you enjoy early glimpses into car industry news, independent reviews, and all the other things we do here at Chasing Cars, we'd love it if you could hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. And of course, I'd love to hear your opinions and thoughts on the next generation of Volkswagen Amarok. So let's discuss the new dimensions and the platform that's going to underpin the next generation Volkswagen Amarok. Firstly, it uses the same body-on-frame chassis as the Ford Ranger T6.2, heavily revised since the T6.1 and very heavily developed in Australia. And on that, the Volkswagen Amarok has actually been developed here as well. There's been a team from Volkswagen Commercial Products embedded in Melbourne, in Australia, from Hanover for the last 3 years, tracing not only the Ranger's development, but also doing their own development on the Volkswagen Amarok. So this vehicle will have a real Australian signature spin to it when it arrives on the market early in 2023. And in fact, it's expected to take over as the Volkswagen Amarok's biggest market, Australia is, that is, taking over from South America, which was the car's previous best-selling market. Now, Volkswagen hasn't released exact dimensions, but we do know it's going to measure about 5.35 meters, or about 86 millimeters longer than an outgoing dual-cab Amarok. It's going to ride on a 3,270 millimeter wheelbase, which is 175 millimeters longer, so that rear wheel will be much better located under the bed, which allows this vehicle to have a better payload. Again, exact dimensions and specifications will be finalized closer to this car's launch, but Volkswagen is claiming around 1,200 kilograms of maximum payload. Of course, it retains the ability to fit a standardized Euro pallet in the back of the tray, no problems, one of the biggest selling points of the Amarok previously, and there are going to be more available options that have the ability to tow 3.5 tons, which is kind of now the industry standard for dual cab utes. Speaking of utes and dual cabs and single cabs, there will be single cabs and dual cabs available globally, though it's possible that Australia may only get dual cab versions of the Amarok, depending on whether or not Volkswagen sees the need to expand its more commercial low-end offerings here in Australia, but that's all going to be sorted out closer to this car's launch. Now let's talk a little bit about styling as well, because unlike other twin under-the-skin utes such as the Isuzu D-Max and the Mazda BT50, Volkswagen says that the Amarok is going to be very stylistically different to the Ford Ranger with which it shares a platform. Now we've only seen the camo shots you can see here, so we can't make final judgment, though in camo you can definitely see the Ford Ranger relations underneath that jazzy exterior print, but Volkswagen says the details are going to be very different. It's going to have unambiguous DNA from the brand, squared off wheel arch extensions as we saw in the previous Amarok, a real signature, thin LED headlights, LED taillights, and Amarok debossed into the rear tailgate of this vehicle. Inside, it's a similar story with a very different design in the cabin. Of course, we can't see it yet. Volkswagen says there are going to be 10-way electrically adjustable seats available on range-topping options, and in dual cab form, it's going to be able to fit 3 humans across the back seat comfortably and be a vehicle that can not only be used on the construction site, but also something to take you to dinner in and be a real family-friendly dual cab, as the previous generation arguably was. There are also going to be more safety aids. Volkswagen says up to 30, which is 20 more than the outgoing Amarok ever had, though of course we'll be able to put those to the test when we finally drive this car in the late part of 2022. As for the grade structure, there are going to be 5 grades on offer from launch, with a base Amarok, named just Amarok, as Volkswagen is doing with its other products, stepping up through life and style grades with 2 distinctively flavoured flagship grades available. The Aventura, which is going to have an on-road everyday urban focus, and there's also the Panamericana, which is going to have a more of an off-road focus, kind of like a Ranger Wildtrak. As for engines, Volkswagen say there are going to be 4 diesels available in the Amarok lineup and 1 petrol, though I'll come back to that in just a second. The lineup is likely to be very similar to that found in the related Ford Ranger. We don't think it's going to adopt any Volkswagen Group engines, though things could change as the exact specifications haven't been revealed to us in full detail, just that there will be 4 different diesel engines. That means the Ranger will probably kick off with a 125 kilowatt 2-litre single turbo diesel at the lower end, moving through to the 2-litre twin-turbo diesel that is a carryover from previous Ranger models, but with a little less power, now making 154 kilowatts and 500 newton meters of torque. And finally, the new flagship, a 3-litre single-turbo diesel V6, making 184 kilowatts of power and 600 newton meters of torque. Now, of course, the Amarok was always famous for having a really lovely VW Group-derived V6 under the bonnet, though torque is up by 20 newton meters in this new vehicle, even though power may be down slightly on the maximum 190 kilowatts that engine made in the past. But still, it's going to be very similar in terms of performance to that car, which is a great thing because the Amarok was always one of the best suits to drive owing to its sweet, powerful, torquey turbo diesel V6. Now, back to that petrol engine. Could Volkswagen be making a fully fledged Ford Ranger Raptor rival with that car's 298 kilowatt twin turbo petrol V6? Well, stranger things have happened. That would be really awesome to see, and some of the sketches we've seen from Volkswagen Design do indicate the fact that the brand may be looking to move into this more lifestyle, performance-focused ute segment in the future, though all of that remains to be seen because that single petrol engine could also be used as a low emissions version in countries like Europe, where particulate emissions and carbon dioxide emissions are more strictly controlled than here in Australia. But hey, we can dream that we might see a Volkswagen Amarok R in the future. Now, what about pricing? If we look at the Ranger lineup in Australia, it spans from 36 grand to 70 grand for the core lineup, or head and shoulders above the rest, you've got the Ranger Raptor at 85 grand. Now, with Volkswagen's slightly more premium spin than Ford in Australia, we could see those prices start a little bit higher with higher end models, perhaps dual cabs only, where the Ranger is available in a whole suite of options from single cab, space cab, and dual cab. So maybe $40,000 to $45,000 would be the starting price for the Volkswagen Amarok with a single turbo 4-cylinder engine. But hey, who knows? That's all going to be lined up when this car comes to fruition. As for the flagship Aventura and Panamericana variants, we could expect those to be above $70,000 when fitted with the single turbo diesel V6 engine, and pushing up to perhaps $75,000 or $80,000 depending on their level of specification inside and out. So that's a quick rundown of the Volkswagen Amarok range before it's even been launched in Australia. We'll have plenty more information on this dual cab as it comes to light. We're going to see a full reveal of this car in June or July 2022, and as I mentioned at the top, we should be able to drive this car in either November or December this year, and it will start arriving with customers in the beginning of 2023. Of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the updated Volkswagen Amarok, or I should say the all-new vehicle. Do you think it's a good idea they've gone down the development path with Ford, twinned with the Ranger? Are you excited about its Australian input? Let me know down below in the comments section, and while you're there, we'd also love it if you could hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. And as always, thank you for watching Chasing Cars.